The screen flickers, just a blink, a split-second glitch. In any other place, it would mean nothing. But in a Las Vegas casino control room, where hundreds of cameras guard every dollar in shadow, it means everything. 2:18 a.m., Sunday, the quietest hour. On monitor 37, two steel carts roll down the main security corridor toward the cash room, pushed by uniformed employees, calm, routine, and visible. Then, static. The image freezes. The timestamp stops. For 90 seconds, the screen is dead. When it returns, the corridor is empty. The carts are gone. So are the men. And in that vanished minute and a half, $19 million has disappeared. By dawn, accounting will sound the alarm. Security will replay the footage again and again, only to find nothing. No thieves, no clue. Just silence. Because the cameras didn't fail. They obeyed. And the man who taught them to lie is already gone. Driving east through the desert, the sun rising behind him, leaving Las Vegas staring at a perfect crime it never saw happen. Before we dive into one of the most technically brilliant casino heists in Las Vegas history, make sure to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more unbelievable true crime stories. Hit that hype button so more people can discover how a surveillance technician turned the casino's own security system into his accomplice. Marcus Dwyer didn't look like a criminal. At 44, he looked exactly as he was meant to, an overworked technician with thinning hair, scuffed steel-toed boots, and a company polo tucked into khaki cargo pants heavy with tools. For 12 years, he'd worked maintenance at the Silver Palms Casino Resort, tending to the invisible machinery that kept the billion-dollar illusion alive. He wasn't a pit boss, dealer, or manager. Marcus was the man behind the cameras, the ghost technician who fixed what no one else understood. The casino's surveillance network spanned over 800 cameras across gaming floors, garages, corridors, and vaults, streaming high-definition feeds into control rooms that never slept. Marcus had helped wire them himself. He could access every panel, every server, every locked door tied to the casino's eyes and ears. When a feed went dark, he was the one called, day or night. Everyone trusted him. He never argued, never drew attention, never made mistakes. His supervisors called him the most dependable man on staff. He preferred working late, alone, unseen. He came and went quietly, logged his repairs, and vanished into the walls. But the man they thought was steady was barely surviving. 4 years earlier, Marcus's wife, Sarah, had been diagnosed with stage 3 ovarian cancer. He'd watched her fight for 2 years and lose. What the disease didn't take, the bills did. $180,000 in debt, the life insurance gone in weeks, their home mortgage, savings erased, credit destroyed. Marcus never spoke about it. He smiled, nodded, and worked while collection agencies filled his voicemail. At the casino, he was calm precision. At home, he was drowning. And then one night, buried in the quiet hum of the surveillance hub, Marcus Dwyer found a flaw. A single imperfection in the system he'd spent his life maintaining. A flaw that could make him invisible, not just to his coworkers, but to the cameras themselves. It began as a routine repair. A Wednesday night in late March. One of the DVR units in the East server room had been throwing error codes, dropped frames, corrupted files, unstable connections. Marcus arrived at 11, toolbox in hand, expecting another tedious fix. The Silver Palms surveillance network was cutting edge. 800 cameras feeding into DVRs with redundant drives and automatic cloud backups, supposedly unbreakable. But while running diagnostics, Marcus noticed something strange. When the system entered maintenance mode, the cloud backup paused. During updates or resets, the DVRs recorded only to their internal drives. No off-site copies, no redundancy. And if those local files were erased or replaced before sync resumed, the footage would simply vanish. Marcus sat staring at the data, pulse steady but mind racing. He wasn't a thief, not yet, but he was a man drowning in debt, widowed, and out of options. That night, a thought he could never unthink took root. In the weeks that followed, it grew. He studied vault transfers, armored routes, and guard rotations under the guise of technical audits. He tracked peak weekends when cash flowed fastest. He mapped the cameras guarding the main corridor between the gaming floor and the armored cash room, four of them perfectly overlapping, except during firmware resets. Then for 90 seconds, all feeds dropped before redundancy returned. 90 seconds. A perfect window, if you knew how to open it. At first, Marcus told himself he was only imagining it, a thought experiment. But each overdue bill and collection call chipped away at what little morality he had left. The casino printed money by the minute. He couldn't pay off his wife's hospital debt in a lifetime. So the man who spent 12 years keeping the cameras honest began designing the moment when they would lie for him. Marcus spent 4 months preparing for a crime that would take less than 5 minutes to pull off. His approach wasn't impulsive, it was clinical. Like repairing a system, he broke the heist down into components, tested, refined, and rehearsed until perfection. He began with legitimacy, maintenance requests, nothing suspicious, routine jobs, lens cleaning, firmware updates, tightening mounts. Each one logged and approved, each visit an opportunity. While repairing, Marcus traced cables, photographed junction boxes, and quietly mapped the surveillance network. He needed the cameras to look alive while showing nothing. Simply cutting them would set off alarms. So he built something elegant, a 90-second loop of real corridor footage. Authentic lighting, natural sound, no movement. Then he created a hidden override, a disguised network switch inside a ceiling box that could inject the loop into the live feed at his command. Testing was dangerous. He triggered the loop during late-night maintenance windows and watched for reactions. None came. The footage looked seamless. The control room didn't notice a thing. Next came escape. His everyday repair cart was the answer. It was trusted, familiar, invisible. He rebuilt it with a hidden compartment large enough to hold bundled cash. Unless dismantled, no one would ever know. Finally, the timing. He chose the VIP high roller weekend in September, when money flooded the casino and attention was elsewhere. Security would be guarding millionaires, not corridors. He volunteered for overnight maintenance, approved instantly. By the final week, every detail was locked. Cameras compromised, timing perfect, exit clear. Marcus Dwyer moved through those last days with eerie composure. He smiled, clocked in, made small talk, ate dinner. No one saw a man about to vanish. The ghost tech was ready to become what he'd always pretended to be, a man the cameras would never see again. Saturday night bled into Sunday morning with the peculiar energy that defines Las Vegas graveyard shifts. The casino floor still hummed with activity, though the crowds had thinned considerably from their peak hours earlier. High rollers occupied private gaming rooms, their tournaments running deep into the night with dealer rotations every hour and cocktail service continuous. The main floor saw scattered activity, a few dedicated slot players, couples laughing at craps tables, the occasional blackjack purist sitting alone with perfect strategy cards. Marcus Dwyer arrived at the employee entrance at 1:45 a.m., exactly on schedule for his overnight maintenance shift. He swiped his badge, passed through the metal detector, exchanged brief greetings with the security guard monitoring the entrance. He carried his standard equipment, tablet computer, tool belt, radio, identification badge on a lanyard. His repair cart sat in its usual storage location near the maintenance office. He retrieved it, checked that his tools were properly organized, and began his rounds through the property. For the first hour, Marcus performed completely legitimate work. He responded to a minor camera adjustment request on the third-floor hotel corridor. He checked backup battery levels in the parking garage surveillance system. He updated his maintenance logs with routine detail. Anyone reviewing his activities would see exactly what they expected. A technician doing his job with characteristic thoroughness. At 2:00 a.m., Marcus entered the East Server Room, where the surveillance system's primary network equipment was located. He logged into the maintenance interface on his tablet and initiated what his work order described as a scheduled network optimization and firmware update. The process was legitimate. These updates were performed quarterly to ensure system security and performance. The work order had been filed 2 weeks earlier and approved by his supervisor. What the work order didn't mention was that Marcus had carefully timed this maintenance window to coincide with the largest cash transfer of the night. He knew from months of observation that the final drop collection from high-stakes gaming rooms occurred between 2:15 and 2:30 a.m. Two armored carts would be wheeled from the counting room to the main vault, passing through the security corridor that Marcus had spent 4 months compromising. At 2:16 a.m., Marcus activated the maintenance mode on the surveillance system. 40% of the casino's cameras, including all four covering the security corridor, entered a coordinated reboot sequence. This was standard procedure during firmware updates. Screens in the surveillance control room would show brief, updating, "Please wait" messages before feeds resumed. The entire process typically took 90 to 120 seconds. But this time, when the cameras rebooted, they wouldn't show live footage. They would show Marcus's carefully prepared loop, 90 seconds of authentic-looking video from a previous shift, showing an empty corridor with normal lighting and no activity. Marcus watched the countdown on his tablet. The system was rebooting. The override was active. The looped footage was playing. In the surveillance control room 3 floors away, security personnel were seeing exactly what Marcus wanted them to see. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, nothing worth a second glance. He abandoned his tablet in the server room, leaving it connected and running legitimate diagnostic routines, and moved quickly through the maintenance corridors. His route was carefully planned to avoid cameras that weren't affected by the reboot. He reached the security corridor from a side access point just as the armored carts were entering from the opposite end. 2 casino employees, cash handlers in company uniforms, were pushing the carts toward the vault. They were following their routine, completely unaware that the cameras supposedly watching them were actually broadcasting pre-recorded footage. They didn't see Marcus emerge from the maintenance access door because their attention was focused forward, on their route and their responsibilities. Marcus moved with practiced efficiency. His repair cart was positioned near the intersection where the security corridor met a parallel maintenance hallway. He'd chosen this spot during his planning because the corridor geometry created a brief blind angle where someone could step out of camera view even during normal operations. The cash handlers pushed their carts past that intersection, following their designated route. What happened next took less than 20 seconds. Marcus stepped into the corridor behind the handlers, matched their pace for a few steps, then smoothly intercepted the second cart. The movement was confident, unhurried, exactly the kind of thing an authorized maintenance person might do if they needed to quickly move something out of a work area. The cash handlers didn't turn around. Why would they? They were in a secured corridor, under constant surveillance, following a routine they'd performed hundreds of times. Marcus diverted the cart into the maintenance hallway, moving it quickly toward a service area that connected to the waste compactor bay. He'd pre-positioned a second cart there, a duplicate that looked identical to the casino's armored cash carts. This duplicate was filled with bundled paper wrapped in casino deposit bags, creating the approximate weight and appearance of cash bundles. It wouldn't fool anyone who actually opened it, but from a distance or on camera, it looked convincing. In the waste compactor bay, Marcus worked with controlled urgency. He transferred the actual cash from the stolen cart into his modified repair cart, filling the hidden compartment in its base. $19 million in bundled hundreds, 50s, and 20s. The denominations used for table gaming fit more compactly than movies might suggest. The bundles were shrink-wrapped and organized, designed for efficient counting and storage. Marcus's hands shook slightly as he moved the last bundle into place, but his movements remained quick and precise. He wheeled the now empty casino cart, the real one, behind a commercial dumpster where it wouldn't be immediately visible, then pushed the duplicate cart back toward the security corridor. The entire diversion had taken 48 seconds. The camera reboot was still in progress. The looped footage was still playing. At 2:19 a.m., the cameras completed their update sequence and resumed broadcasting live feeds. The surveillance control room screens flickered back to normal views. Security personnel glanced at the monitors, saw the expected empty corridor with normal lighting, and returned their attention to more active areas of the casino. Nothing appeared amiss. The cash handlers reached the vault with their remaining cart, the one Marcus hadn't intercepted, and followed their standard procedures for secure delivery. They had no reason to know they'd started with 2 carts. As far as they were concerned, they transported exactly what they were supposed to transport, following their assigned route without incident. Marcus was already moving toward the employee exit, pushing his repair cart that now contained $19 million in stolen casino money. He looked exactly like he always looked during overnight shifts. A maintenance technician finishing his rounds, equipment cart in tow, moving with the unhurried confidence of someone who belonged exactly where he was. At 2:27 a.m., Marcus reached the maintenance vehicle parking area where his repair van was stationed. He loaded his cart into the van, a movement he'd performed thousands of times during his 12-year employment. The security guard monitoring the exit camera waved distractedly as Marcus pulled away from the property, following the same route he used every shift when leaving after overnight maintenance work. At 2:40 a.m., Marcus Dwyer drove off Silver Palms Casino Resort property with $19 million in stolen currency, leaving behind no witnesses, no evidence, and cameras that showed nothing but routine activity in an empty corridor. For approximately 6 hours, no one knew a theft had occurred. The casino operated normally through the remainder of the overnight shift. Dealers counted tips. Guests checked out of hotel rooms. Breakfast service began in restaurants. The vault operated on schedule, processing deposits and preparing cash for the next banking run. The discrepancy was discovered during Sunday morning reconciliation at 8:47 a.m., when the accounting team attempted to match counted deposits against log transfers. One cart was missing from the overnight vault deliveries, specifically the cart containing the final high-stakes gaming room drop. The initial assumption was procedural error. Perhaps the cart was still in the counting room. Perhaps it had been logged incorrectly. Perhaps the handlers had made a mistake in their paperwork. But the cart wasn't in the counting room. It wasn't in any of the secured areas. It wasn't anywhere it was supposed to be. And when the accounting supervisor calculated what that cart should have contained based on table drop reports, the number was staggering. Approximately $19 million in cash. By 9:30 a.m., the casino had activated full security protocols. Vault areas were locked down. All staff who'd worked overnight were detained for interviews. Surveillance footage was pulled for review. Management convened emergency meetings. The atmosphere shifted from confusion to barely controlled panic as the realization settled in that they weren't dealing with an accounting error, but an actual theft. The surveillance review initially yielded nothing useful. Security personnel watched footage from the security corridor cameras, seeing exactly what they expected to see. Two cash handlers pushing two carts toward the vault, following their normal route, with no interruptions or suspicious activity. The handlers themselves confirmed they transported two carts and delivered two carts. Everything had been normal. Everything had followed procedure. But one cart was missing, and $19 million was gone. The contradiction was impossible to reconcile. The footage showed nothing wrong. The physical reality proved something was very wrong. Security managers watched the corridor footage repeatedly, searching for clues they couldn't find because they were watching a carefully constructed lie that looked exactly like truth. Marcus Dwyer's name didn't immediately surface as a suspect. He was a maintenance technician, not a cash handler. He had no direct involvement with money operations. But when security began reviewing access logs to determine who had been in restricted areas during the relevant time frame, Marcus's credentials appeared repeatedly. He'd been performing network maintenance. He'd accessed server rooms and junction boxes. He'd been in the building during the theft. When supervisors attempted to contact Marcus for routine questioning, he didn't answer his phone. When they dispatched security to his apartment at noon on Sunday, they found the door unlocked and the residence abandoned. Marcus Dwyer had vanished. The investigation exploded in scope. The FBI was contacted immediately. Casino theft of this magnitude fell under federal jurisdiction. Agents arrived by afternoon and began analyzing what little evidence existed. They reviewed Marcus's personnel file, his financial history, his work records. They discovered the medical debt, the foreclosure proceedings, the collection actions. They found clear motive. They also found his technical expertise. Marcus wasn't just any employee. He was the senior surveillance technician with complete access to the casino's security system. He knew every camera, every recording protocol, every potential vulnerability. The agents began re-examining the surveillance footage with new suspicion. Forensic video analysis took 2 days of frame-by-frame examination. The analysts finally identified what human observers had missed: a subtle pattern repetition in the corridor footage. A maintenance cart visible at the edge of one frame appeared in the exact same position several seconds later. A slight flickering in the timestamp that was barely perceptible but mathematically consistent with video loop artifacts. The footage wasn't live. It was a recording being broadcast as if it were live. The discovery was devastating. The casino's entire security architecture had been compromised from the inside by the one person they trusted to maintain it. Marcus Dwyer hadn't just stolen money. He'd turned their surveillance system into his accomplice, making cameras lie about what they'd witnessed. Physical evidence began emerging. Investigators found the hidden junction box where Marcus had installed his override hardware. They found the real cash card abandoned behind the dumpster in the waste compactor bay, wiped clean of fingerprints, but clearly the missing cart from the transfer. They found his tablet still running in the server room, its maintenance logs showing exactly when the network reboot had occurred. But they didn't find Marcus. His repair van was discovered Monday morning in a long-term parking lot at McCarran International Airport, apparently abandoned. But review of airport security footage showed Marcus never entered the terminal. The van was a diversion. He'd parked it there to suggest he'd fled by air, then left via other transportation. Credit card records showed no activity after Saturday night. His bank accounts had been nearly empty before the theft and showed no deposits afterward. His cell phone was turned off, its last ping from a tower near the Utah border. His apartment yielded more evidence: burned wiring, counterfeit security access cards he'd apparently manufactured, handwritten notes about surveillance system architecture. But no money, no travel documents, no clues about where he'd gone or what identity he might be using. The FBI traced his van purchase to a used car lot where he'd paid cash 6 weeks earlier. They found the storage unit he'd rented in Utah, but it had been emptied days before they located it. They interviewed former colleagues who described Marcus as quiet and competent, but couldn't provide information about friends, family, or associates who might be helping him. Marcus Dwyer had planned his disappearance as carefully as he'd planned the theft. He'd left behind his old identity like a shed skin, vanishing into the vast anonymity of a country where cash could still buy temporary invisibility if used carefully enough. The Silver Palms Casino Resort filed insurance claims, fired multiple security managers, and spent over $15 million upgrading their surveillance systems. They implemented new protocols requiring multiple authentication layers for maintenance access and eliminating any single person from having complete control over security infrastructure. The FBI added Marcus Dwyer to their wanted list, offering a $200,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. His photograph appeared on news broadcasts and law enforcement bulletins across the country. But months passed, then years, without credible sightings or evidence. Somewhere, perhaps in a small town where questions aren't asked, perhaps using a carefully constructed false identity, perhaps simply living quietly on cash that will last decades if managed conservatively. Marcus Dwyer may still exist as someone else entirely. The ghost tech who learned to make cameras lie had performed his final and most complete vanishing act, erasing himself as thoroughly as he'd erased 90 seconds of surveillance footage. The red lights of the control room monitors still flicker across security personnel faces every night. The cameras still watch, still record, still provide the illusion of complete surveillance. But at Silver Palms Casino Resort and at casinos nationwide that learned from their failure, there's new wariness about the people trusted to maintain those systems. Because the greatest security vulnerabilities aren't technological, they're human. And the most dangerous thieves aren't the ones breaking in from outside, but the ones already inside who know exactly where the blind spots are, even when there aren't supposed to be any. If you found this true crime documentary fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more incredible heist stories. Drop a comment below with your theory. Do you think Marcus Dwyer is still out there? Could he really disappear forever with that much money? Let's discuss.